Thank you for joining Success at Scale with Triple G Ventures. I'm here with Florian today from Soundbrenner. Florian is an amazing guy. You're going to have a blast talking to him, but let's just jump right in. Why not? So Florian, tell us a little bit about you.
Hey, Greg. Yeah, excited to be here. Would love to, share a bit more. So I'm the CEO and founder of Soundbrenner, most notably, I would say. I've been running the company now for 7 years. I started the company straight after graduating from university in 2014 with no experience whatsoever. And back then, it was kind of the peak hype of the wearable world with the IPO of Fitbit, and the Apple Watch was rumored. And so during that time, we had the idea, well, in this wearable future, there should be something made for musicians that basically brings the music equipment world into the 21st century. So as fresh graduates, we set out to make this a reality, kind of expecting it wouldn't go anywhere, but we were so excited that we couldn't stop thinking about it and couldn't stop working on it. And in the process, at the time, I was living in Germany. I then ended up moving to Hong Kong because it turned out to be the best place to develop the product. And that's actually where I live since 7 years. And turns out, against common sense and our own expectations, this whole thing actually worked out. We now have around 670,000 musicians that use our mobile app every month. And we have shipped over 100,000 devices, wearables for musicians. We're sold in over 100 countries. And, in a way, we are still at the start. We still want to scale at least 100x from where we are now. We think there's a lot of potential and still having a lot of fun. So
Florian, all right, a wearable for musicians. What do I need that for? I mean, I got a whole set of drums back here. I'd love to know why do I need one of those?
Yeah, good question. So the original idea is pretty simple, actually. So as you know, right, every single musician in the world has to play on time, and rhythm is the lifeblood of music. And so the only tool musicians had until 2014 to practice their rhythm was the metronome, which is actually a 200-year-old invention from the 19th century. And so the problem is, if you ask musicians, many will say the metronome and the click is an instrument of torture because of how annoying it is. So for those who listen, who are not musicians, it makes a click sound that you listen to and try to play along so that you don't speed up or slow down when you play music. But you can imagine if you have for 1 hour this annoying click in your ear, well, it's painful. So
I can relate to that. A lot of practice with a metronome. It drives you mental, but the outcome is magic, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Like if you ask professional musicians that record in the studio or, on performances, like everybody's using a metronome that is a serious musician. And so our idea was, well, what if we change that with a vibration? What if instead of listening to the sound, you could actually feel the beat? And so we developed a device specific for that has an incredibly powerful and distinct vibration. It's about 7 times stronger than in a smartphone, for reference. And that's also really important because when you're in action, in motion, you're playing music, then you want to get something really powerful so you can still feel it. And then, from there, the kind of creativity and juices started flowing. So we were like, wow, what if we made it a touch surface and you could just tap the beat onto your wrist and it would magically pick that up and match that? And then what if you could use an app to synchronize a whole band? And then everybody can practice together with feeling the same beat. And that's what got us so excited and get started. And now today, of course, it's much more than that. We added a lot of additional innovation over the years, but that's how it all started.
What's so interesting is, much of our audience at Success at Scale is really, many of them are not musicians and they're not in the music business and it's not their world. So what kind of, advice would you give to someone who's listening that's not a musician, that is doing what you're doing, maybe in a different industry and, getting a startup off the ground, basically?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, the most important thing is to realize that it's possible to do it and to actually take action. So my own story is I grew up in Germany in a very small village with 600 people. So I like to say there
Wow.
were more cows than people in my village, right? And it's probably not an exaggeration. And to me, this whole idea about starting my own company, it seemed like this amazing, exciting idea, but also kind of absurd because I never met anybody in my whole life that has started a tech startup, and I had only seen it, maybe on the internet. And then I decided to move to Berlin, and that's where I suddenly met entrepreneurs left and right, and I realized, wow, actually, I can do this too, right? Like this is real. Like let's just go and do it. And I would say that was kind of the biggest breakthrough moment on the whole journey, is just to have that realization and to stop dreaming about it and to start working towards it. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. You've had an amazing journey, right? It's just an absolutely amazing journey. You've been at this for a few years now, is that right?
Yeah, since 2014. So it's about 7 years
2014.
now.
Okay, so since 2014, what's the thing that you least expected would have happened on this journey?
Right. The least expected thing. Let me think about that for a second. Um, I mean, I would say that kind of a common misconception is like, I knew this from growing up. My relatives and friends, like people, when they think about starting a business and innovation, they're like, oh, if only I had this one idea that's like this $1 million idea, and then I'm a millionaire. And then when you actually have an idea, people are very protective of it. They're like, oh, I can't tell you because maybe you're going to do it and then you're going to steal my $1 million idea. And in reality, starting a company is like completely different, where the idea is worth very little. You quickly realize that 99% that determines the success is not the quality of the idea, but then actually how you develop the company and run with it. So, for example, we started as a vibrating metronome idea company, right? But then today we are like something totally like more than that. The idea evolved many, many, many times over. So now we are, as I mentioned, for example, we have an app that is used by 600,000 musicians. That was never part of the initial idea. And
Wait a
obviously
minute,
that's
600,000 musicians? Are there that many even out there?
there are, yeah, there's even way more than that. So we're working towards getting them on board as well, right?
But I mean, you
And
have an amazing start just a couple of years in, and you're already got 600,000 musicians on your platform. It's pretty amazing. And did I see that you guys are actually somehow getting into space or something like this? What's that about?
yeah, exactly. Like today, that's actually just happened today, where I posted about this, and it took place on Sunday. Talking about unexpected turns for your product. So I just explained the vibrating metronome. So since we have a vibrating metronome, it's a pretty sophisticated haptic device that can do a range of vibrations. And maybe a couple of weeks ago, somebody from the I don't want to butcher it, but essentially from an affiliate organization to NASA, contacted me that they are working on a project called Astro Access that is about bringing disability ambassadors into space. That's their mission.
Wow.
And so, long story short, they organized a zero gravity flight on Sunday, and they ended up using our metronomes to coordinate. Because if you have like deaf and visually impaired, crew members, then how do you tell them, oh, it's time to unbuckle or coordinate and communicate? And vibrations are amazing. So there you go. Now we are heading towards space. And who could have expected that at the start? And by the way, there's many more things like that. There's people using it to treat tremor, to have speech therapy for people that stutter. I heard from the Olympic gold medalist in archery. He's using it with his students to train shooting arrows and like all kinds of crazy things you wouldn't believe. So there
You would have never, thought when you were dreaming about all of this back in 2014, like,
go.
you would have never thought that this is where it would go, right?
Yeah, and I found that's actually a common pattern across all founders almost, that the idea is not a fixed thing. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves over time. And yeah, it's not necessarily, or almost never, where you end up is never where you aim to end up when you get started.
So this is an interesting topic in itself, right? Many founders find themselves in a business, developing a strategy, developing a product or a plan and saying, okay, this is the direction I'm going in, and then find themselves having to pivot along the way. Have you found yourself having to strategically pivot along the way? And what has that meant to you and your business?
I mean, I would, it depends how you define pivot, right? So does it mean abandoning what you are doing and going into a completely new direction? We've never had to go to that extreme. And certainly some companies have and have done very well doing that. But in our case, we still have, in a major way, adjusted our priorities, I would say. For example, we started out as a pure hardware business. Today, hardware, I would say, is more like 25% of our attention, and actually 75% goes more towards the mobile app. And so those kind of, and we were a metronome company. Today, we see ourselves more as a practice company, music practice company. So that's a much broader, bigger ambition and a bigger vision than just being a metronome company.
Now,
And
what
so I
about
would say,
as the pandemic kind of rolled in, and things like this that were outside of your control? No one could have foreseen this craziness that we're dealing with. How has that impacted you? Did you have to pivot, adjust? What did that mean to you?
yeah, I mean, there's tons of implications for everybody in the world from this, right? So there were good and bad things. For example, what was kind of like, first of all, it was scary, right? Because when this pandemic hit, nobody knew what was going to happen to demand. Like, is everybody just going to stop buying stuff and start to build up savings for, everybody, many people lose their jobs. And, we had to plan for that. That was one aspect. But then actually it turned out the opposite way. People were stuck at home. They got bored. So they started picking up their instruments again for us, which was good. So we saw in Google search trends, search keywords on Google like learn guitar, learn piano. They exploded by 400% temporarily, but for 3 months. But that was a great second quarter last year for us. And then, of course, there's the whole impact on China and the supply chain and manufacturing and logistics. So we had, we're still having to adjust to that. And there's longer lead times, and it requires a lot of hard work to keep the ship running. So yeah, it never gets boring. If you run your own company, you're gonna do a different job every day, kind of.
So that goes even crazier when, by the way, congratulations. I understand you just had a baby recently. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, 3 months old. Still getting used to this crazy new
Congratulations.
experience. Yeah.
So, now that brings in a whole other thing. It's not just about business, it's about life, it's about balance, it's about, making sure, you're able to, spend time with your family. This is a thing that a lot of founders, struggle with. How are you finding yourself dealing with it? How is having a baby and a bigger family changed your perspective on things? This is a hot topic for people. So I'm curious how you navigate, because you seem to balance everything so well.
Well, yeah, I would say that this whole question of work and life balance, like it depends a lot. Like it implies a bit that work is not part of life, and that there's something unpleasant about work, which it depends what you do, right? So when I was a student, I worked to clean like buildings and stuff to make a little bit of money. So that certainly I would want to have a balance from that, right? But right now, I'm actually having a blast when I work. I get to see my product in space. I get to design new things and envision new product experiences. So I don't really need a break from that, or a balance in a way. To me, that's life. Living life to the fullest is working on that. I love that. But of course, then I also love to spend time with my son and with my girlfriend, and that's great. So, I mean, right now, I don't know how it's going to evolve. Right now, there's not that many things you can do with a 3-month-old, and spending 2 hours per day. That's pretty good. But
Oh,
you
you have a
tell me,
long way to go, my friend.
you're further down the journey. I'm sure that I will get more tempted to to spend more and more time. And I think that's also fine, So
I hope you do. I
yeah.
hope you do, because what I've found is that, there's so much to be learned from the experiences. Let's say this was a game and we were on the field, right? Off the field, there's so much to learn. There's so much perspective to be gained. And sometimes those experiences actually feed, bigger ideas. So, congratulations once again. Now your life sounds like a dream come true to many, right? You're doing what you love. You're doing something with purpose. You're changing the world, so to speak. Let's talk about a moment where it wasn't so pretty, right? You had a moment of failure and it backfired on you and it was a horrible experience, but you learned something. What did you learn? What happened? What did you learn?
Right. Yeah. I mean, for sure, that's the other side of the coin. I got the chance to see Elon Musk live once. He came here to Hong Kong, and
Wow.
I was like really close to him. So he's obviously the one of the heroes of every entrepreneur, right? And I remember he said, starting a company is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. And that's very true. I keep thinking about that very often because there are certainly, it's a roller coaster. You have soul crushing moments that drain the life out of you. And then the next day you feel amazing because something went much better than you were hoping. And so I would say, what did I learn along this journey? Well, I guess, you could really say the difference between a successful entrepreneur and a not successful entrepreneur is the successful entrepreneur never gave up. To an extent, that's really true. There are moments where you should call it quits and say, okay, this isn't working. But more often than not, the reason why companies fail is because the people involved lost the passion, the energy, and didn't keep going. So I would say one of my learnings is that above all is the most important ingredient is to have that persistence. And I would call it even relentless determination to make this a success no matter what.
That's amazing. So let me ask you this. What about people who have played a role in influencing you? You mentioned Elon Musk. Are there others that really have either helped you along the way or influenced your thinking?
Yeah, I think that's also very important learning, right? So you can imagine when you are graduating fresh from university, then there's a lot of things you don't know, and you are very naive, and there's just no experience, no reference experience, and it's kind of a crazy thing to jump into a business because you don't get to join an existing structure where you can absorb how things are supposed to go. You don't really know how things are supposed to go yet. You have to enforce the standards and hire people, and that's an incredible strength because you can you just do things differently, and build it from first principles. But then on the other hand, it can also be a huge weakness. So I would say mentors are essential. So I had many of those. For example, really early on, when we started, there was a guy called Greg Stein that helped us a lot.
No.
And and at that time, you obviously already had decade plus of experience and helped me build our marketing team. And that's just one example. But then there were other people that were investors that could help us a lot and teach us how to do manufacturing in China, which certainly isn't simple. And of course, there's then also kind of spiritual role models that I don't know, but that give me energy when I read their biography or see what they do, like going back to how Steve Jobs transformed Apple from near bankruptcy in 1997 to a $1 trillion company that changed the world today, and things like that. So
That's amazing. So obviously you're a technology guy. One of the things I love about you is you're always plugged into the latest and greatest, what's happening. Somehow you're always ahead of the trends. We were just talking about, you mentioned Apple. We were just talking about a conference that happened yesterday. And, here you are this morning telling me every detail. So, I'm curious, how do you take all of this great technology and know-how and apply it to your business? What kind of technology are you adopting in the everyday operations of the business, and where do you see things going too?
right, yeah, I would say that you can't really, like, you just have to absorb and see what's out there, and then you'll develop the like the ability to connect the dots and see, take what's useful and discard what's useless. So, I mean, for us, since we're a tech startup, naturally, we're using tons of technological tools. Like now it's already kind of everywhere, like Slack, Zoom, Zendesk, all this kind of stuff, and then just absorbing what other companies do, and then seeing what can apply to music equipment. Then helps us in the product design process. Yeah.
What's one of the biggest myths about music tech, even business and startups that you'd love to debunk right here, right now?
Well, I feel like starting a company has kind of become the flavor of the month a little bit in for young people. There's like this idea that you sit around and you play ping pong and you sit in a beanbag, and it's kind of like, oh, follow your passion, start your own company, and then you get to relax and have fun, kind of thing. And I feel like that actually some of the people that apply at startups and at Soundbrenner, they would have this kind of expectation, but then the reality is kind of the opposite. It's more like you want to make building something the central part of your life, and again, it's like relentless determination, not a passion, which means there's a lot of struggle in there, and you kind of have to love the idea of climbing this hard mountain, and then it's the right journey for you.
Excellent. So for many in the business world, it's a time of uncertainty, it's a time of change. What advice would you give to someone who's out there, who's working through some of the bigger challenges right now?
Right. Yeah, I would say to use the ability, well, just to keep a calm head, right, and reason your way out of the crisis. So do what you have to do. Be transparent with your team. For example, if you're a leader, you have employees, I think it's important to not pretend everything is fine, and because people can see through that. You kind of have to be transparent, acknowledge the challenges, and lay out the plan, and do it in a calm way. If you're a pilot and your plane is going down, there's no point to break out in panic. You have to keep a calm head, see what you can do, and try to land the plane, right? So I think that's kind of what we did facing the COVID crisis. There's certainly challenges that came with that, but I would say cool heads prevailed, and we actually came up with some great new improvements to the business, because every crisis is also an opportunity. So
there you go. That's so true. So true. And it really is about the journey along the way, right? We talk about, the losses and the struggles and all these things, but all those things are the things that inform success and wins, right? Florian, it's been so amazing catching up with you. Thank you so much for joining Success at Scale with Triple G Ventures. Really enjoyed listening to you. So much exciting things going on at Soundbrenner and everything you're working on. Congratulations on your expanded family. Where can listeners find you online? Where can they learn more about Soundbrenner? Take it away.
Yeah, definitely. It was a blast. If you want to learn more about Soundbrenner, go to soundbrenner.com, which is our website, and you'll find everything you need. If you want to get involved, we're actually hiring right now for mobile app engineers. Also, if you want to look for me personally, I'm Twitter, Instagram under the handle SimmenFL. And Greg, thanks for having me. And hope we can do this again.
Thank you, Florian. We'll talk to you real soon. Be well. You're the man. Peace.